Today's video is on the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. I'm Stephen Arms, and welcome to In the Arena of History. The Second Amendment of the Constitution is somewhat of a controversial amendment. People have a lot of opinions on it, a lot of very strong opinions on it, and it's probably more argued than any amendment other than possibly the First Amendment. The First Amendment has more sections to it, but the Second Amendment has its own detractors and its own defenders.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay, having read it, having gone over it, let's break it down into pieces. A well-regulated militia. Militia in the late 1700s, 1790s had a different meaning, say, than it would today. It's similar because most people think of militias, the National Guard, the state militias, and they were technically state militias back then also. But when you look at the Revolutionary War, you had, the Green Mountain Boys were a militia, and they were simply a group of men who had organized together to fight against the British. If you look at the Minutemen, citizens that had their own weapons that came together to fight, loosely organized, working together. So when in the context of the Constitution's time, a militia is a citizen army. Now, the next it is, of course, being necessary to the security of a free state. Now, the free state in this would obviously be the United States of America. So if you read the Second Amendment and say, a well-regulated citizen army being necessary to the security of the United States of America, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It isn't terribly complicated like that. People may not like it, but it's fairly straightforward. Now, some people argue on the words keep and the words bear. Well, keep's pretty simple. I mean, the keep is to own, to possess, to have. So we have, as citizens in the United States, we have a right to own arms, to own guns, weapons. Guns, of course, the big controversial issue in all this. And we have the right to bear them, which means bear is to carry. We have the right to carry them. Now, again, in the late 1700s, that would be muskets, that would be pistols. It could be handheld weapons, swords and tomahawks and axes and clubs, whatever you happen, the killing weapon du jour of the day. But in modern times, does that mean we have a right to have bazookas? That we have a right to carry rocket launchers? That we have a right to carry surface-to-air missiles and rocket-propelled grenades? And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find even the most ardent member of, say, the NRA who would think that we have a right to be carrying rocket-propelled grenades. Now, to give a little bit of the opposite point of view on that, I will point one aspect of it. I'll give a quote from Thomas Jefferson. Of course, this is Thomas Jefferson who wrote the Declaration of Independence, was one of the people that worked on the Constitution, and is one of the beginning founders of what we now consider the Democratic Party.
The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government.
So Jefferson points out that the right to bear arms is a necessary thing to have for citizens and people to fight against a tyrannical government. Most people in the United States don't think of it that way. They think of the right to bear arms as to protect yourself against criminals, possibly even to protect yourself against foreign invaders. But they don't want to consider the idea that the Bill of Rights is our rights that we have. They are given to us by a power greater than us. They are the divine rights that human beings have. The amendments to the Constitution do not give us rights. They simply state the rights that cannot be taken away from us. So when you think about this, the idea of a tyrannical government needs to be opposed. If the government comes to seize, take away your rights, then you have a right to have weapons and fight against them. And because people remember, Jefferson was a man who didn't like the concept of a true democracy, what he would consider a mobocracy, because that's often called the tyranny of the people too. You can get a group of people in a country who will rise up and want to do something, and other people that may have to defend themselves from them also. So I mean, these are worst case scenarios, but I would point out that in the notable tyrannies of, say, of the 20th century, let's talk about Mao's Red China, let's talk about Stalin's Soviet Union, um, Hitler's Nazi Germany. I mean, those tyrants in the 20th century are responsible for the death of between 80 and 150 million people dead. And rest assured, the first thing they took away from those people were the rights of freedom of speech, the rights of freedom of press, and the right to bear arms. So definitely food for thought when you think of it that way. I had a conversation recently with someone talking about this amendment, saying they were of the opinion that it was antiquated, it should be removed, it was no longer needed. And I did point out to him that there is a process that you can amend the Constitution with. All it requires is that 2/3 of both houses of Congress will agree upon legislature for an amendment. Then it is submitted to the states. The states have 6 years to ratify it. And each state ratifying it only gets 1 vote. So New York has 1 vote, Rhode Island has 1 vote. But it takes 3/4 of the states to ratify the Constitution, which would be 38 states. I mean, the Constitution has been ratified over 24 times. Excuse me, the Constitution has been amended over 24 times. But so it is possible. But I don't think you'd have much success trying to get the American people to give up their right to have weapons to protect themselves. So, if you've enjoyed this video, then feel free to hit the like and subscribe to my channel. If you went, wow, he had some really good ideas and you approved of it, great. If you hated my video, go ahead and hit the dislike. But hopefully I helped you to get your mind thinking about it. And if you want to leave comments below and tell me that I'm wrong and tell me why, I'll be happy to answer you on them. The main thing is I'm getting you to use your mind, which is my main intention. So, I want to thank you for your time. Goodbye.